When she walked into my life, my world felt complete. But what I didn't know then was that the very thing I thought would bring me joy would slowly steal who I truly was. This is a story about solitude, love, and the hard lessons that come too late for most. I'm 84 years old now, but when I look back, the moment everything changed started when I was 69. I met Diane, and everyone around me celebrated it. My son smiled and said, "Dad, this is wonderful." My neighbors nodded as if I had finally done something right. Friends patted my back like I had won a prize. For a while I believed them. I thought I had fixed the part of me that was lonely. But here's the truth. No one asked me how I really felt. For 3 years, every morning at 5:30, I would wake up and there was this quiet emptiness I couldn't name. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was something subtler, something that made getting out of bed feel like a challenge. Then, the morning she left, I made my coffee, sat in my old chair, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt alive again. Back then, I didn't understand why. I'm not here to say relationships are bad. I'm not bitter. I'm simply an 84-year-old man who's learned something the hard way, and I want to share it before you make the same mistake. Before Diane walked in, I was a man who had rebuilt his own life from grief. My wife, Carol, had passed away years earlier. Blood poisoning, 8 weeks from diagnosis to her death. I was like a ghost after she was gone. I forgot why I entered rooms. I stood staring at the fridge, not remembering what I came for. But I changed that. I'm a retired electrician. For 38 years I ran wires, fixed problems with my own hands. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I built a life I could touch and hold. A workshop behind my garage, birdhouses, stools, bookshelves, dining tables. By 67, I had a life that was mine. Up at 5:30, coffee on the back porch, then straight to the workshop. It was simple. It was mine. I was content. But then everyone around me started to worry. My son, Thomas, said I seemed lonely. Phil, my neighbor, cornered me at the mailbox and said, "Walter, life's too short to be alone." Slowly, I started listening. I started doubting the very contentment I had worked so hard to create. When I finally agreed to meet Diane for coffee, I was polite. I was curious, but I had no idea what I was trading. For the first few months, it felt nice, even comforting. But there was a catch she didn't see, and I didn't see either. The real me, the quiet man who loved his mornings, his workshop, his silence. He wasn't part of what she wanted. And that's where the lesson begins. Sometimes, what you think is love can quietly shrink the life you worked decades to build. It started so gently. The kind of warmth you feel when someone smiles at your story, laughs at your jokes, and listens as if your words matter more than anyone else's. But sometimes the gentlest warmth can hide the shadows that grow silently, unnoticed. The first coffee with Diane turned into dinner. Dinner became twice a week. By the spring of 2014, everyone around me seemed relieved. My son called more often. Friends whispered approval. Neighbors nodded in quiet satisfaction. And yes, the first few months felt nice. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't quite love. It was simpler. It was being seen, being acknowledged. But here's the truth I didn't see then. Diane wasn't seeing me. She was seeing the version I presented. The man who shaved every day, who made dinner plans, who asked polite questions about her family. The real me, the man who thrived in the quiet, who found joy in early mornings and the smell of sawdust in my workshop. That man was still there, waiting in silence. Diane liked to talk in the mornings. Not small talk, she thought out loud. By 8 Ori, she'd shared stories about her youngest grandchild's school, her neighbor's health, something she'd heard on the radio. And I wasn't a man who spoke before 9 a.m. That wasn't a flaw. It was who I was. Carol, my late wife, had understood this in 6 months. Diane never did. She never said she disliked my workshop. She was too kind for that. But by 10, she would appear at the door. "Just checking on you," she'd say. Then she'd stay, asking careful questions. "What's that for? Is it safe? How long will that take?" Each question broke my rhythm, pulled me away from the quiet I needed to function. I tried to adapt. I started going earlier. Then she started coming earlier. And slowly, day by day, the quiet life I had built, the sanctuary I had crafted after grief, began to shrink. Not because she was cruel, not because she was wrong, simply because she existed, and I had built a life that needed solitude the way a body needs air. And that's when it hit me. Without realizing it, I had begun to lose myself. It didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic moment, just small intrusions that became constant, gentle nudges that told me my way of living wasn't enough. My peace wasn't enough. My contentment was just hidden loneliness, or so everyone told me. 3 years passed quietly like this. Every morning at 5:30 I woke up. I loved my coffee. I wanted to go into my workshop, but I didn't. Not because I was tired, not because I was weak, because I knew she'd wake up soon. Whatever I started would be interrupted. And so, I stopped starting. I stopped creating. I stopped savoring my own life. That's when I realized what I had truly lost. It wasn't the mornings. It wasn't the workshop. It wasn't even the silence. It was my belief that my way of living, my life as I had rebuilt it, was enough. For 3 long years, I had allowed others, even someone I cared for, to convince me that I was incomplete. And that, my friends, is the lesson most never see coming. Sometimes the cost of trying to fit someone else's expectations is not measured in arguments or heartbreak. It's measured in the quiet erosion of your soul. Sometimes the hardest choices aren't about someone else. They're about choosing yourself. And letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally remembered who you were. The breaking point came on a Wednesday morning, 3 years later. I woke at 5:30 as always. Diane was still asleep. I made my coffee and stood at the window, staring at the workshop I had once loved. And I realized I didn't want to go inside. Not because I was tired, not because I couldn't, but because I knew she'd wake up in an hour. Whatever I started would be interrupted. I let the coffee sit while I searched my memory. When had I stopped enjoying my mornings? When had I stopped building big projects, waking up in quiet peace, savoring my solitude? It had been over a year. Slowly, imperceptibly, I had shrunk my life to fit someone else's presence. And then it hit me. What I had lost wasn't Diane, and it wasn't the companionship. It was my faith in my own way of living. For 3 years, I had believed that being alone meant something was missing, that my contentment wasn't enough. I had listened too long, and in listening, I had stopped being myself. 2 weeks later, I ended the relationship. It hurt. Diane asked if she had done something wrong. I told her the truth. Nothing. She had done nothing wrong. The mistake was mine. My son was disappointed. My neighbor judged me. But for the first time in years, I felt a spark that had been missing. That first morning after she left, I woke at 5:30. No one was coming down the hall. No plans, no expectations. I walked straight into my workshop. I put my hands on the workbench and stood there until noon. Not because I had something to build, but because I needed to know I still could. And that, more than anything, is the lesson I want you to take away. No matter your age, no matter what people around you say, your life belongs to you. Don't let anyone convince you that being alone means being broken. Don't let anyone shrink the rhythm of your own soul. For me, at 84, I now know this. Living your final years as someone you no longer recognize is far worse than dying alone. When you are yourself, your mornings, your silence, your workshop, even your coffee growing cold while you think, it is enough. Absolutely enough. Here's what I wish I had known sooner. Your life is not defined by companionship or approval. It is defined by the quiet moments only you can own, and the courage to protect them. After I ended the relationship, the mornings returned. The silence returned. My workshop, my garden, even my coffee growing cold while I reflected, all returned. And with them, a truth I had almost forgotten. My life, as I had built it after grief, was more than enough. For years I had listened to voices telling me that solitude meant loneliness, that contentment without someone else was incomplete, and I believed it. For 3 years I doubted the man I had become. But that morning, standing in my workshop, I realized I had not lost anything that truly mattered. I had only forgotten what I already had. Here's the lesson. No one else gets to define your happiness. Your peace is not negotiable. The rhythm of your own life, your routines, your passions, your quiet is sacred. Protect it. Nurture it. And don't ever let the fear of being alone convince you to trade it for the approval of others. At 84, I now wake up every morning exactly as I did before anyone told me otherwise. Coffee on the back porch, workshop at 7, projects big and small, solitude cherished, not endured. And I feel younger than I have in decades, not because of anyone else, but because I am finally myself again. So remember this. The cost of ignoring your own life is far higher than the cost of choosing solitude. Being alone is not a punishment. It is an opportunity to honor who you are. And when you do, you finally realize that what you once thought you needed from others, you had within yourself all along. Here's the truth no one tells you. It's not love that defines a life well lived. It's being unapologetically yourself. And when you finally own that, everything else falls into place. I've lived 84 years on this earth. I've buried loved ones, felt grief that could crush you, and experienced joy that lifts you higher than you imagined. But the lesson I carry now is simple. Don't trade your life for someone else's comfort. Don't shrink your mornings, your silence, your passions, or your workshop to make others feel at ease. That first morning after Diane left, I realized that living for yourself is the bravest thing you can do. My hands on the workbench, my mind focused on a project, my coffee growing cold while I watched the sunrise. It was a reminder that life, in its purest form, is enough. And it always was. No matter your age, no matter what the world tells you, your quiet moments, your routines, your solitude, they are your greatest treasures. Protect them, cherish them, and never, ever apologize for needing them, because living your life on your own terms, that is the real victory. And for me, at 84, I finally feel it again. Younger, freer, alive, whole. Closing hook, call to reflection. So take it from me. Don't let anyone convince you that being alone is a flaw. Don't let fear, expectation, or even kindness steal the life you've built. Your mornings, your silence, your workshop, your coffee, they belong to you. And that is more than enough, always. Here's the truth at 84. Your mornings, your silence, your passions, they belong to you. Don't shrink your life for anyone else. Being alone is not a punishment, it's a gift. Live your life fully. Be yourself. And remember, being enough is the greatest victory you will ever have. Comment. What part of your life do you cherish most? Share below. Like, if this reminded you to protect your own peace. Subscribe for more stories that inspire you to live fully.